The one fundamental question you have to ask yourself as an entrepreneur is, are you confident in yourself and your abilities? Do you have self-limiting beliefs that stunt your chance at progress and prosperity? Well, for entrepreneurs who are 18 to 25, they're told Intuit Minds, a site that gauges the psychology of entrepreneurs, that they're 75% confident in the success of their business compared to only 53.5% of entrepreneurs between the ages of 56 and 65. Peter Lynch is an entrepreneur, business coach, proud dad, and speaker who is on a mission to help empower other entrepreneurs to find their inner strength and do it with self-confidence. Lynch believes that entrepreneurs have the tools in their toolbox to eliminate self-limiting beliefs and tread their way towards success. However, he says it all starts with a belief within our inner abilities. He joined me this week to talk about entrepreneurship, overcoming self-limiting beliefs, and so much more. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. So Peter, if you're ready, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program, and I'm super excited to talk entrepreneurship with you this morning. Great to see you, and thanks so very much for being here, buddy.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Now, I know that your passion, Peter, is helping entrepreneurs sort of get in touch with their inner passions and their passion for business. So I'm wondering if you can tell me about all the great work that you do.
Yeah. My work's always focused on the inner game of success, right? Because the cap that we hit on, in life, the cap of or the ceiling of your success is really your personal growth, right? And the ceiling of your personal growth is your willingness to face yourself. So my work, it really just focuses around being able to bring a mirror of self-awareness and have kind of a safe place, really, just to be able to practice self-awareness, identify what are the limiting beliefs that are holding an individual back, which is all of us, right? We're always on a growth trajectory. That means we're always dealing with something. So it's important to be able to have a space where we can identify that without judgment and have a practical, pragmatic process of moving beyond our current limitations, right? Which is really to bring healing to the conflict that's leading to the experience of self-sabotage.
Absolutely. And to that point, Peter, I'm wondering your thoughts on how you define entrepreneurial confidence.
Confidence?
Yeah.
Entrepreneurial confidence?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, no, I love it. Confidence is a great word, and I think it's one that gets thrown around a lot. But from the Latin root of it, confide just means to know, right? Understanding, right? So confidence. So when we talk about self-confidence, it's really to know yourself. If we're looking at the etymology, the roots of the words, it just means simply, if I have self-confidence, it means I know myself. So entrepreneurial confidence, I would say, has to do with understanding of, first of all, what game you're playing, right? But more importantly, who you are as the player of that game. So entrepreneurial confidence has confidence. It means you understand entrepreneurship, you understand the game of business, but most importantly, you understand who you are in that game. because if you don't understand yourself and your own role that you play, you're going to have a hard time. So for me, confidence always comes down to self-knowledge, self-understanding. It has little to nothing to do with trying to put on a show of bravado.
Yeah, absolutely. And, for yourself personally, Peter, I know you're a coach, a speaker, and a dad. So tell me, how do you define personal happiness and success, buddy?
Yeah. Yeah. Such a great question. Once again, I think it has everything to do with living to your full potential, or at least the pursuit thereof. It's really about fulfillment. Happiness isn't found in the accomplishment of something. There's goals I've set for myself and I've achieved, and it's like I don't necessarily find happiness in the accomplishment of those goals, but in the process of pursuing them. Right? There's joy in the day-to-day moment of living the daily struggle. Right? Living the daily struggle of being a better father, being a better coach, doing better, growing my business, etc., hitting my goals. So for me, joy, happiness, they come in the process of living the day-to-day practice of the pursuit of your greater potential, right? Which is fulfillment, is that of sharing the gift. I think the greatest joy comes when we share our gift with others. That's definitely when I've achieved that's when I've felt best, is when I know that the talents that I have, I'm able to share.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point, I'm interested to follow up by asking you, how do you think we achieve energy and enthusiasm in business?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, energy is the principle doesn't change, that like attracts like. Right, so your own energy is going to be so changing, altering, improving your energy and increasing your how do you generate enthusiasm too, right? Because enthusiasm, motivation, they kind of go hand in hand. How do you increase your energy, etc.? I think it really has a lot to do with if you're in alignment with what your calling is, with what your purpose is, you're going to naturally have more energy and enthusiasm. I think a lot of times people are struggling with motivation, or struggling with a lack of energy, lack of enthusiasm, lack of motivation, because they're not actually pursuing what they're meant to be pursuing, right? Because I do believe we all have a calling and a purpose in life, which we're naturally equipped to accomplish. And if you're out of alignment with that, life, everything is hard, feels harder than it needs to be, because it is. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but that's always a big theme to me. It's just that sense of being in alignment with your purpose, your calling.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you have some strong opinions on the dark side of influence when it comes to entrepreneurship, and I know that you've experienced it personally. So tell me about it.
Yeah, well, it comes straight from the earliest times, in childhood, and then just seeing it play out throughout life. I mean, it's really been my school of hard knocks in psychology, right? Is just started with growing up with my dad and who he was, and seeing the being, and when you're that little, of course, you're not able to really process the things. It's just your experience. So for me at that age, those young ages, it was just the experience that was damaging. A lot of it was traumatic. Not traumatic in the way that we generally think of trauma as being like an extreme event. Trauma is really, can be really low grade things, but trauma really just simply means a sense of powerlessness, especially for kids. Most of the issues that we deal with as adults are just the wounded part of our childhood that's still playing itself out. And it's that sense of powerlessness. And so that leaves a seed in the subconscious mind that anytime we encounter anything similar to that experience, there's a strong reaction. And that's what we term self-sabotage, because our subconscious is trying to protect us from reliving that negative experience. So for me, there was a lot of traumatic experiences, a lot of times where I felt powerless. I was I was at the mercy of the whims of what my dad was thinking at that time. And we never knew what that was going to be, right? It was a bit, I guess you could just say, a bit bipolar, among some other things. So, so that then continued, that gave me a lens though, as I was working through the issues that I carried with me with low self-esteem, lack of self-confidence, a lot of struggles throughout my life. And then, it wound up in a few positions where I was working for other people who were once again manipulative, abusive, and it just gave me this. It gave me a lens right through firsthand experience of this to start to see the way that the principles that are used by. Because at one point I was part of an organization that just the leader was just it was a cult, for lack of any better description of it. I mean, that's really what it was. So extremely manipulative, psychologically and emotionally abusive. And once again, what I got to see was, this is all influence, because it's the ability to influence people can be used for good or bad, right? So it's kind of like a neutral tool. It's like if I have a hammer, I can break things or I can build things. Influence is the same. It's a hammer. Am I going to build you up or am I going to break you down? So it really depends on the state of the individual utilizing the influence. And so all that to say, it's just what, moving into marketing and sales, the world, and just the world of entrepreneurship, what I saw was there's a whole lot of influence that's being abused, because there's a lot of people that just, they're out to utilize the power of influence for an end that is not beneficial to the receiver, to the recipient.
Yeah, absolutely. And transitioning, I guess I'm curious to ask you, how did you find a sense of peace? Because I know that you work with people to try and build their business while also being at peace. So how did you accomplish that for yourself? What do you think the first key is building a business of success while also being at peace?
Yeah. Well, I think it's like, well, big thing for me was just setting aside the expectation that I was putting on myself, because I had to come to terms with the fact that I was still trying to please. There was still so much of me inside that was still looking for my dad's affirmation, which I didn't receive. So that wound inside me, it was a void I was trying to fill. And I would try to fill that void by trying to prove something in business. If I can get my business to a certain point, right? So the issue was, there's actually an issue right in the language there, which is that how do we have a successful business while being at peace, right? Which is really comes down to the conflict that can arrive with that kind of wording is, what is the definition of success? I think that's the place where a lot of us have to stop and pause and realize, what standard of success am I holding myself to? And is it healthy for me or is it unhealthy for me? Am I creating an unreachable standard because of my wounding, or am I actually moving towards what's right for me? Because, and I don't mean that success is completely subjective, right? There's definitely, we have real world realities that we have to achieve, right? We got to pay our bills. We want to be able to provide for our families, and be preparing for the future, etc. Right? But not everybody is out to achieve the same things in business. And a lot of times what happens is you hear the speakers out there and they kind of present this one size fits all standard of success. Your business isn't a success unless blah, 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 fill in the blank. It's $1 million a year, this and that. I know a lot of people that are happy to just have a small business that they can operate by themselves or with a few, with a small team, because that's where they're at. They don't want to take on more because it's not right for them. So I think a lot of it comes, the path to peace comes through conflict. It's the interesting irony. The path to peace comes through war. The conflict is to break apart what is the current worldview that is holding me back from my peace. What is the current worldview that I'm carrying within me that's actually robbing me of my peace? And a lot of times that's our definition of success. So that being said, there's no conflict between peace and like high profile success, as in like having a large business, making a large income. There's no conflict between those things. But for some people, it's more than what's right for them at the moment. And that being the case, they're setting themselves up for failure through false expectation.
And to that point, Peter, I know you work with entrepreneurs who you say work hard without seeing the results that they want. So how do you get people to sort of find the business clarity that they're looking for?
Yeah, and a lot of again, most everything comes back down to really just comes down to the childhood conditioning. A lot of times people are working on things that aren't moving them forward, and so they're feeling like they're stagnant in their business. And the irony is when you make peace, and you're not when you lay aside striving so hard, what happens is success actually comes more easily. And so the general result for my clients is that they're able to work less and achieve more, right? Or at least just accomplish more with less friction. There's more joy. There's more. Higher productivity. To put it out, to use those words of just being able to thrive. So bringing that clarity really comes to. Sorry, I lost my own train of thought as I was going there, but the clarity comes back with just what is it that that was right. A lot of times people are working hard, but actually unconsciously choosing to work hard on things that won't move them forward because of the emotional addiction to an identity of failure, right? And until that is addressed, there can be no forward progress, because that is the ceiling that the performance will come up against over and over and over. And until it's addressed and resolved, there can't be any forward progress.
Yeah, and Peter, you talk about forward progress. Last week was National Accessibility Awareness Week, and Peter, I was actually born with cerebral palsy, and I work with people who have disabilities to get them employed. So whenever I talk to entrepreneurs, I'm curious to ask them about their definition of diversity, equity, and inclusion as it relates to infusing more individuals with disabilities into the workspace and into entrepreneurship. I'm wondering where you fall on that argument as well.
Yeah. That seems like one of those things that is unfortunate if it's an argument. You know what I mean? Right? Like, I really don't. I don't do much in the corporate world, so I can't speak to that. But for me, it's as far as the inclusion in the corporate sense. But I always think that a person should be able to. There shouldn't be limitations placed on somebody in the pursuit of their passion and their purpose. And so. So that means, if somebody's good at something, there shouldn't be there shouldn't be an issue. Like, I don't know, what we're doing right here, for instance, like is a great, just works as a great example. Like it's fantastic that you're hosting this podcast, and when it's something that I know, it is the kind of thing that people might say, well, you can't do that, right? Because of this or that. And it's just it's a beautiful example of being able to pursue your dreams in spite of what society around us tells us what we can't do. I think that's what bothers me more than anything is the prescription of limitation that happens a lot of times. And the reality is, like, some of us have disability without it being just without it being as overt as others. But the key is to really be able to move. And progress is a funny word because it can be insinuated so many different ways. But I think that but to still be able to move towards what's right for you, right? That's really the bottom line for me. If you feel a call in your heart, that's what you're meant to accomplish. And that means you're already equipped to accomplish it, regardless of what anybody around you has to say, and there's always naysayers around us. I don't know if I'm answering that question, but you can call me back in.
Yeah, no problem. And we've talked a lot about self-sabotage, and I know you work with people that have to overcome imposter syndrome. So I'm wondering if you have sort of a roadmap that you give people to overcome their self-limiting beliefs, and what sort of a forecast do you have people follow when they go on that journey?
Yeah, everything starts with awareness. What is it's always easiest to start with, usually it's easiest to start with, well, what are you trying to accomplish, especially for entrepreneurs, right? Where entrepreneurs are usually very goal driven. What are you trying to accomplish? And so from there it comes back to, well, when you hold up that goal for yourself, what challenges do you experience when you go to accomplish it? So it really becomes, the word map is really the perfect analogy for it. It's as simple as coming up with that map. What is your destination? Where are you now? And what obstacles are you facing when you go to accomplish it? And then we start to dig deeper of just simply how do those obstacles show up for you in other scenarios, right? Is this a repeating pattern? Usually what's happening is there's a repeating pattern of, when I go out to accomplish anything, so such and such experience happens and I feel sabotaged, because that's how self-sabotage happens, right? Is we feel that it's a repeating pattern of, it doesn't matter, anytime I'm trying to accomplish something that's meaningful for me, I feel held back, right? That was my experience. It put short. And so being able to identify that and really start to, that's when the work, so I always have there's a process and a structure to it. Sorry for the convoluted answer here. It's just that there is absolutely a roadmap. There's such a dynamic work, though, also because we're dealing with the internal things, right? So it's unique for every individual what comes up for them, as far as what are the limitations, or the limiting beliefs. Usually, right? What are the limiting beliefs that come up? As in, well, I'd like to do this, but, or I would do, it's funny, even just doing this, doing this traveling with my family, talk to a lot of people and tell them what we're up to, and they'd say, oh man, I'd love to do that, but, and there's always excuses. So it really comes down to, well, I'd like to do this, but, and as soon as we identify what comes after but, that's usually the limiting beliefs. I do that, but I'm not tall enough. I'm not handsome enough. I don't have enough money. For me, it's like, for coaching, for years, I knew that I wanted to be a coach, but I told myself, yeah, I do that, but nobody will take me serious. That was my primary limiting belief. So that's just using myself as an example for the roadmap. What was my goal? I wanted to be a coach. Well, what was the block? Where was I at? Well, I was not being a coach, right? I was doing other things. I was doing my contracting business. And so what was the limiting belief? Well, I didn't think anybody would take me serious. Yeah. Right. So I had to work through that self-confidence issue that I had, which was really just me getting in my own way, and identify where does that come from, which is a painful journey of self-awareness. Right. And that's the biggest thing. Personal development is not for the faint of heart, because you have to face yourself, and there's a lot of people, just honestly, there's a lot of people I talk to that are kind of into the idea of it, but when it gets down to the actual work of it, they don't want to do it, because they don't want to actually face themselves, which is where the real growth happens. And it's painful because it means taking responsibility for your life, right? So it really comes down to, whatever results I'm experiencing, I've created them somehow. That's hard, because that means I'm responsible, but it also means I can change it, right? Once we take ownership, there's empowerment as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Peter, I'm curious to know if you have sort of a life motto that you live your life on.
Oh, yeah. There's one quote from St. Isaac the Syrian that I just love, and it's, make peace with yourself, and heaven and earth will make peace with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell me, to that point, my final question for you today is, it has to do with your personal and professional legacy and how you want that to be defined.
Yeah. You know, those two things come, they just coalesce for me. It's one and the same. And I suppose I'm privileged in a lot of ways to be able to have that. You know, my personal and professional life are really the same in a lot, as in this to the legacy side of it. They're really the same. And it's really, because what I mean there is that it's the same legacy I'd love to leave with, you know, in my client work is the same legacy I'd like to leave with my children, which is to empower others to feel to be their to succeed as their authentic selves, you know, to feel comfortable with who they are and to be at peace with that, and yeah, just to live the life that they want to on their own terms, not trying to live up to somebody else's standard that's not right for them.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Peter, I always say that everyone's portrait of success is different, isn't it?
Yes.
Absolutely. And finally, Peter, tell me, if people want to get connected with you, buddy, what's the best way they can do that?
Yeah, and anywhere on social media, you can usually find me under PL himself, or just go to my website, which is unshakable.pro.pro.
Fantastic. Well, Peter, I really enjoyed our conversation about entrepreneurship, business growth, and limiting or overcoming limiting beliefs. Your work in the space and time on my behalf is most appreciated, buddy, and I want to thank you for being here this morning.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you for the work that you're doing. You know, it's just like, it's always inspiring to talk to somebody who's, you know, taking their own journey and helping empower others who are on a similar journey, you know. So just thank you for doing your work with others with disabilities in the workspace, et cetera.